Hello, friends. Welcome back to 52 of my closest friends. Thanks for hopping on for the Valentine's Day episode. Curious, how many of you thought that I was about to soft launch someone? Or would this be a hard launch? I don't really know what the rules are on the different launches, but that's not what this is. This is me yapping for some time. So, one, I hope that you're having a great Friday. For those of you who celebrate Valentine's Day, I hope that you have a great day. For those of you who don't celebrate Valentine's Day, I also hope that you have a great day. I feel very impartial towards it. This is not even really a special Valentine's Day episode. It was just a reason for me to talk unfiltered for like an hour. But truth be told, this is actually maybe the third time that I have attempted to sit and do this. I've learned that it is just a lot easier to talk to someone else than it is yourself, even though I feel like I do a pretty decent job at holding my own in a conversation. So, here's kind of the outline of what I'm thinking today. So, I knew that I wanted to do another just by myself episode and just kind of share some things. I think that part of doing this podcast is you all getting to know me and obviously my friends, but I'm get to share life updates and things like that. So there were a couple of things from Emily's podcast that were relevant to talk about today, and I was discussing with a friend some things that I maybe just wanted to start doing with this podcast, and she was just like, well, why don't you just start by next week, when you do your episode, just giving an update on like what God's doing in your life. And I was just like, you know what, that's perfect. So that's part of what we're doing. I am also going to be going over my bingo card for 2025. So instead of making like a wish list or even like, I don't know, a plan for the year, I just really wanted to make a bingo card. Nothing crazy about it, just things that I thought would be exciting to do this year. And I noticed when I was putting it together, some of it was like really big. There wasn't just a lot of like super practical everyday stuff. I don't know. Maybe for some of you, these are super practical everyday things, but I just kind of shoot the moon. But besides giving you guys an update on my life and going over the bingo card, I also wanted to just throw a little bit of a Valentine's Day piece in there. Super basic, but let's start with the bingo card. So if you're listening to this, that means there's been a post made on Instagram with my bingo card. And I would encourage you to go look at that just so that you kind of like see where I'm following through here. And if not, that's totally fine too. But there are a couple of things on the bingo card that I'll make notes of that maybe like I'll reference later. But either way, let's just dig in to the bingo card and let the conversation go from there. Sound great? Okay. So starting at the top, does stand up somewhere. I think that most of you know that at one point in time I was doing stand-up comedy somewhat consistently. I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. But a couple of things. It's hard to do it consistently and to do it consistently well because it just takes so much time. Really, because I enjoyed it. But just because it's not something I think you can do passively. Like, you just really have to be putting it into craft, and I just didn't have time to do that. The other thing was I noticed as I was building jokes, I always had more that I wanted to say, but it wasn't funny. It was much more existential or like life motivating, and that kind of just fueled the maybe I should do a podcast type of fire. So I would really like to do it again this year. Maybe if it's just even like once or twice, just enough to kind of like shake the rust off. But Evansville has some decent open mic opportunities. I just sometimes get hesitant to invite people to them because if you don't know, people who are not funny but think that they're funny just go straight for crude humor. I think if you can be funny and use crude humor, it's fine, but that's not usually the case. So if you know of, some stand-up opportunities, send them my way. Moving on to the next, I want to visit a state that I've never been. There are plenty of those. I would say the most realistic ones are probably Ohio or Michigan. And some of you are probably thinking, why in the world have you never been to Ohio, or how has that never happened? Well, do you just randomly go to Ohio? Like, is that the state where you're just like, let's just take a little trip to Ohio? I don't think so. But, I could always be down for a little Cincinnati trip, if anybody's down for that. I think Michigan's also probably pretty practical. Seeing the Great Lakes would be really cool. But state I've never been to, I would like for that to happen this year. Eats at 2 or more restaurants on, quote, the list. This list was made up a couple of years ago with my friend Sarah Jane and I. It's local restaurants that either one of us has not eaten at. Now, the other one may have, but the general thought behind it is that we've both not eaten at one of these restaurants. And so we're going to hit some of those up. We typically, if we do go out to eat, we stay in the Samuel's vein, because why would you choose anything other than Samuel's? Samuel's is great. Evansville also has a lot of really great local restaurants. And so the plan is to eat at more than 2 of those on the list this year. Teddy Swims concert. I feel like that's simple enough. He is playing in Nashville in August. He's at Ascend Amphitheater. I don't really care for Ascend Amphitheater. I don't think that it's the best music venue. I think if I'm going to go to an outdoor concert where I'm going to be in an amphitheater, I'm going to go to the one in the Noblesville, because I think that it's the best. I lived in Nashville. I went to concerts there. I'm going to choose the one in Noblesville every time. But I don't know if he's going to be in Noblesville. Maybe I just picked Nashville for other reasons, but would love to go see him. Has become a favorite artist of mine. So if you really like Teddy Swims and you want to go, let's make that happen. I would love for that to come out of this episode. Last one on the first line, flies on an airplane. I have flown on an airplane before. I just think it should happen every year. I love an airport. I love an airplane. I love it. I don't know how to explain it. If you don't like flying on an airplane, that's totally fine. I don't have the fear of falling out of the sky. I'm not concerned about the physics. I used to have like a real bad airport anxiety of what if they don't have a ticket for me, or what if there's really something in my bag. It's just not worth it. It's really just not worth it. So I got to fly on an airplane. Starting on the second row, gets a tattoo. I have a friend. She's an artist. Her name is Jess Bernardin. Her Instagram is Olives and Arrows. She drew a custom piece for me that I do have planned to get tattooed this year. I have a spot for it. I have narrowed it down to a couple of artists, and I probably need to specifically tattoo artists. She's just the artist. Then I need to take it to a tattoo artist, if that makes sense. I just need to kind of just do it, and I haven't done it. Partly because once you get one, you've got one. And as much as I love this piece and I have envisioned it for years, and she brought it to life so well, it's just like ripping the Band-Aid off, I also would like to maybe do like a half sleeve on my left arm. And so the idea of committing to putting a tattoo in a certain spot and not really knowing where the rest of them would all fit in kind of stresses me out. So I'm like, what if I just start with a small one? We'll see. But let's see if that gets crossed off. Falls down in public. Now, this is not something that I'm hoping is going to happen. But when I was making this, I just found myself putting, like I said, these really big things on this list. And so I was like, all right, it's very, very possible that this could happen to me this year. It almost actually happened yesterday. I was crossing the street leaving Honeymoon on Weinbach, and you understand you're risking your life when you run across there. It was a little slick because it had been raining. And I joked with my friend, and I was like, oh my gosh, what if I would have fallen down? And we just looked at each other and we were like, you could have marked it off of your bingo card. And so I was not sad that I didn't fall down, but it also would have been really funny for that to have been a moment in the middle of Weinbach, of all roads, right? The next one is memorize Ephesians 1 and 2. Have I started this? No. Do I have everything I need to do this? Absolutely. I want a better understanding of Scripture. I don't know why Ephesians 1 and 2. I think somebody suggested it, and then they were just like, well, let's just laminate it, and we'll just memorize this together. And I was just like, okay, sounds great. So they're laminated so they can hang in my shower. But I'm getting ready to move, spoiler alert, So I don't want to hang them in my shower. I have to take them down and then hang them back up. So the beginning of next month, I will start memorizing Ephesians 1 and 2. And we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty excited about that. They're not super long. I think it's probably pretty practical. The next one is drop 2 more pant sizes. I think that's it's not lofty. That's by no means lofty. But it's just kind of something I have established some new disciplines in my life in the last half of a year. And so I would like to keep those going. This is not one of those like hard pressed things, because I don't want it to be a situation where like if I don't do that, then I like become hard on myself. I just put it on here because I thought it would be cool if it happened. But I'm very much of the approach right now of like slow and steady is what's going to win the race. And if this happens, that's great. If not, that's also okay. I'll just keep pushing forward. So, all right, last one on the second row goes to the beach. I think everyone should be at the beach once a year. Just sit in a chair in the sand, put some sunglasses on, and just listen to the water. Because as someone whose brain runs constantly, and as someone who, despite the fact loves a lazy day, has a really, really I have a hard time just like sitting still, like letting my body sit still without an appendage moving. Sitting on the beach in a chair, listening to the water is like there's a piece of like a healing factor for me. Like I don't feel stress. I don't feel like that my brain runs. I've always tried to be somebody who reads a book on the beach, and I can't do it because I just want to sit and not have to do anything. And so I'm going to try to go to the beach again this year, and it'll probably happen. I think probably the flying on an airplane and going to the beach, I think that's probably going to happen sometime maybe in the month of June, but TBD, right? All right, we're moving into the third row, and you will notice that there are some different things about this row than the other ones. The first one is blurred out. This is my invitation for you to message and guess what you think that is. I need to be able to plead the fifth if this one happens. And so, have some fun with it. Send me what you think I would not want you all to know, but I'm putting it on my bingo card for this year and would need to plead the fifth. You would also need to plead the fifth. But I just want to see what your guesses are. Let me know. The second one you'll see is marked out. I have changed jobs. I'm going to give a little bit more information during my What's God Been Doing in My Life portion of this episode, but I have changed jobs. That was an incredibly awesome moment to be able to cross that off, and super excited about where we're headed in that area. The middle space, the free space, if you zoom in, it says re-downloads dating apps space. I don't know if it's funny or not. I haven't quite decided. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the very end when I do like an actual like why did we come here for Valentine's Day type of vibe. But I don't know if I actually want to mark that space off this year. Or maybe I do. I don't know. I did the other night text one of my friends and I'm like, okay, listen, it's 3 days before Valentine's Day. Should I just maybe, I'm just looking for a free meal. And she was just like, that's probably not the answer. That's not the direction that you're wanting to go. And I was like, okay, cool. All right. After the free space goes dancing. I'm very disappointed in Evansville's, call it dance scene. I don't like that. But there's just not somewhere to go dance. And maybe I needed to take a little trip to Nashville or something and just dance. I think really what I need genuinely is a millennial wedding. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I want to hear hits from 2003 to 2011. I want to go to the bathroom and have to reapply makeup and relive the days of middle school where you hear, I don't know, a song by Usher and you go sprinting out back to the gym or to the reception hall so that you can dance some more. All night, I want to wake up and I want to be sore the next day because my body cannot move the way that it did when it was 16. That's what I want. I really want that. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But if you're a millennial and you're getting married this year and you're listening to this, or if you are someone who is going to a wedding this year, a millennial wedding, and you need a plus one and you just want to have a good time, you know where to find me, for sure. Speaking of having a good time, sings karaoke. I love to sing karaoke. I also really, really love to dance. I don't think I really sold that, but I also really love to do karaoke. It takes me a couple of songs to build a little bit of courage up. And I mean a couple of songs as in sitting and watching other people go. And then I'm okay, now I'll jump in and do it. I don't even need to have anything in my system to be able to sing karaoke. I just like doing it. And so I'm going to sing karaoke. Actually, I finished this right before New Year's Eve. I think it was on New Year's Eve itself. And the following day, I was driving back home from Missouri, and Ellen texted me, my friend Ellen, and she was like, hey, so I want us to memorize Wilson Phillips's Hold On, and I want to sing it karaoke this summer when we go to see Ben Rector. And I sent her a screenshot of my bingo card, and I said, please look at what you have done. So I believe that I will be singing karaoke, and I'm really excited about it because Ellen is such a good time. And Emily, if you're listening to this, just know what you're getting yourself into, but I'm really excited about it. All right, let's move to the next line. I want to go to Waffle House. That's really kind of simple. I don't think that is an incredibly extravagant response. Technically, I was at Waffle House about 2 weeks ago, but I just went in to buy coffee. I didn't sit down. I didn't have any crazy experience. I just walked in, I bought coffee, and I left. And so I'm not going to count that. I want the actual experience of sitting down and having the Waffle House experience. That's what I want. I want to do that. So if you also love Waffle House, let's just make a little day trip somewhere. There's Waffle Houses within 2 hours of Evansville. I think let's just go. Let's just get in the car one day and let's just go. Hit me up. It would be a really great time. I want to also create a signature cocktail. The idea of the signature cocktail, though, I think is pretty much just the Retriever's Reward from Samuel's. I think that that's my favorite drink that I've ever had in my entire life. It's delicious, and I'm just going to try to find a way to emulate that. And the idea behind this is if you come over to my house, you know that I will always have what is needed for that. That's just going to be my signature drink. If I go out somewhere, I'm going to know how to order it. It's real great. But in the meantime, until that happens, until I feel I've got those ratios down, go to Samuel's and order a Retriever Reward. It's amazing. Speaking of amazing, these transitions are terrible. I'm so sorry. I want to eat pecan pie. Very specifically, chocolate pecan pie from Be Happy Pie Company. It's just a simple pleasure of mine. I think probably everyone maybe knows now that I've cut sugar, and I'll got an update on that too. But when I stripped away everything and I was not eating any desserts of any kind, any sugar of any kind, it was amazing the things that I just stopped craving. But I just really want a pecan pie. I didn't even know that this was what lived inside of my brain. When I think of all the desserts that I love, that's not usually at the top of the list, but that's what I want. So I think I've got a couple of friends that we're going to sit and we're going to have a pecan pie. Maybe we will eat that with the signature cocktail. And I guess you all can be invited too. I want to do more than 12 puzzles this year. I really like puzzles. They're a hyperfixation. I'm not going to equate them to the beach because those are not comparable. But when I sit and I work on a puzzle, it really is a hyperfixation, and it's super soothing to me because I'm just sitting and I'm focusing on the puzzle. I don't have to do anything else. I can play music in the background. I really just kind of have this moment of intense focus, and it's really, really nice because I do have ADHD, as I think most of you are aware. But ADHD is not just this hyperactive, oh my gosh, this person never stops talking. It's just my brain. It runs all the time, and puzzles help me to not have to do that. So I would like to do more than 12 this year. I think I'm Maybe half. No, I'm not halfway yet. But with that being said, if you also enjoy doing puzzles and then you do them and you don't know what to do with the puzzle after you've completed it and you've put it back in the box, I'm trying to work on a puzzle swap with some people. So if that's you, if you're down to like swap some puzzles, let's do that. Send me a message for real. All right, the next one, it might be a little strange, but I had braces. I think those of you who have known me since my freshman year of college or before that, I had braces. It was a little bit of a traumatizing experience. Long story short, my orthodontist that I had been going to since like 5th grade, okay? 5th grade. The dude was scamming my parents out of money, like no doubt. He just like stopped answering the phone. And this orthodontist was like not just like conveniently close to where I live. Like I grew up in a pretty small part of the world where you're driving at least a half an hour to like a metropolitan area that doesn't have a tractor on a main road that day, right? Well, I just was getting ready to leave for college and I was just like, we'll just deal with this, I'll just deal with this. And so I started making some phone calls and apparently I was not the only one experiencing this issue. And so I went home at Christmas break my freshman year and another orthodontist took them off and was just like, I'm so sorry about this. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. So I would like to maybe entertain getting them again. It just, not even for vanity reasons, but just because I just feel like I had them for all those years and I just don't, like, I'm just still not, like, satisfied with what my teeth should look like, right? So, if you have a recommendation on who I should go to in Evansville for adult orthodontic coverage, let me know. That would be super helpful. All right, we're to the bottom row. Thanks. I'm so glad that y'all are hanging in. I appreciate this a whole lot. But this is also super fun for me because I feel like you're getting to understand a little bit more of my brain and things that I am excited about for this year. I want to host a launch party. It would be quite an undertaking. I have a location. I think I have a theme. I've just got some ideas that are like rolling around in my head and it might happen. So if you're listening to this, you are officially invited to said launch party when it happens. But TBD. I got some thoughts on that, but it would be a ton of fun. Lake Street Dive concert. Lake Street Dive is amazing. In Emily's episode, I recommended that people listen to the live album of Need to Breathe at the Bridgestone Arena. I still recommend that. But I would also recommend any Lake Street Dive album. Legitimately. All of them. They're just good. Okay? So, go check them out. I first heard a song by them every bit of maybe 15-ish years ago. That may be a little too long. 14. I forget how long I've been out of high school. It's probably been realistically 13 to 14 years, okay? Starbucks used to do this thing where it would download a song of the day to your iTunes, and they had a song called You Go Down Smooth, and I loved it, but like this was maybe before like my music awakening, and I just wasn't able to like fully commit to like searching this music out further, but I'm so glad I did because I rediscovered them a handful of years ago and they're phenomenal. And they are touring. They're not quite as big, and so finding concerts that are somewhat close to a normal area for me is difficult. But if you love Lake Street Dive, like, let's go. Hit me up. Let's go. Speaking of going, let's go to therapy. No, for real, in all seriousness, I have a very close friend who has served as what I would call as a passive therapist for, I don't know, maybe the last 4.5 years or so, and has been incredibly beneficial and has given me so many opportunities to recognize areas of myself where I can do better and be better, and areas where I can also heal and I can forgive other people. But I am like, let's just quit being passive about this and let's just go full in. And so that's happening this year. That's also like a ripping the Band-Aid off situation, you know. it's not one of those things where I'm afraid of it. Like, I'm not afraid to sit and to like talk through things. I love self-development and finding ways to be a better person and moving past traumatizing experiences. I'm pro all of that. It's just kind of the like similar to dating where I have to maybe try out a couple of therapists before I land on one, but like you're still putting yourself out there and it's maybe a little exhausting. So we're working on that, but I would encourage anyone to give it a go. I don't know anybody who's had therapy that has regretted it or that the people around them have regretted them going to therapy. So for sure, serious moment there. Last two, here we go. I want to host 6 house parties. 6 house parties. There are only 10 and a half months left in the year, which sounds like a lot, but I want to do that because I've been in an apartment for so long that I can't just have a bunch of people over and do a bunch of really cool stuff because there's just not space for it. And I'm about to have space for it. And so you know that we're going to be having some house parties. And I mean house parties like I'm going to have music playing and there's going to be food and different stuff going on in every room and people can just come in and they can mingle. Like it's, I don't know. It'll be a vibe. Maybe you'll get invited. Maybe you won't. I don't know. I guess you'll have to find out. All right. The last one. High fives Ben Rector. This is probably the most unrealistic thing on here, but let me tell you why I believe this can happen. Okay. It's the last spot on the bingo card. So just hold on, right? I have been to every Ben Rector tour since 2015 with my friend Emily. We have been in 3 of his videos. At the end of all of his concerts, he always does this thing where they raise the house lights up and everybody goes crazy and we throw our hands up in the air. Emily and I have been in 3 of his videos. She has stood on the chair twice. I wore like a super bright, like we talked about this in mine and Emily's episode. We're there. We're present. Okay. We have several of these concerts been within like feet of him, but it's just like so like just enough out of reach. Okay. Then fall of 2023, when we saw him in Florida, there was like a little holding or like a staging area over on the right where like the artists could sit and like their families could sit during the concert and they had security so that nobody was bothering them. And that's where Ben's family was sitting one night. And we were just like kind of like this, like kind of like a back corner of like of a section. So we had all this room to like roam because there was nobody around us. And I got a wave and a smile from him. Plus, well, not plus. I think that we're like, this has led to the right trajectory of going to see him this summer in Indianapolis at an amphitheater. It's not the one in Noblesville. It's the one in Indianapolis. It's smaller. It's downtown on the river. We're sitting on the lawn. If you're on the lawn, you know what that means? You can meander and nobody's going to ask questions. Ben likes to go out into the crowd and meander around and shake people's hands. And far be it from me to believe that this man is going to let us down if this is the last tour that he's doing for a long time with the full band. I have just enough energy at this moment to carry me through this. It's going to happen. Also, I have high-fived Bear Reinhardt from Need to Breathe twice. I think I'm going to post the video of me laughing the second time that I did it. I think it's going to happen. I think that between the energy that I'm carrying towards my connection with Ben Rector and the fact that I've high-fived my favorite singer of all time twice in like the last 3 years, I can do this. It's going to happen. So it's going to get crossed off. Maybe I get kicked out of the amphitheater. I don't know. Emily, Ellen, I hope that you're ready to watch it happen. But all right, I'm going to take a break and switch over and I'll be right back. All right. I hope you all enjoyed that. I just think it's fun. I think that things like that should be happening more regularly in our lives. We should not be taking ourselves so seriously. We're like, we can't write down things that we want to happen, whether they're big or small or everything in between. So let's transition a little bit. And I mentioned a couple of things in the bingo card that I wanted to give a little bit more of a background here on like things that God is doing in my life. So transparently, I was not super excited about this year, and that's not usually my MO. I'm usually like, all right, new year, let's let's take the fresh start. Let's approach this differently this time. But I just wasn't. There were some things that, how do I put this? Like, I think I just knew there were going to be some challenges ahead of me. That I don't know. I don't know that I was ready for them. Not in like a bad kind of way, but just like a year of growth. You know, one of those years where you just have to like really, really buckle down. And I spent 2024 buckling down in other areas of my life. And I don't know. Sometimes it's just nice to like not have to like follow the rules, right? So at the end of 2024, there were a couple of things that maybe set me in the place where I didn't feel as excited about going into this year. These are not necessarily like any typical order, but I have been on staff at my church since the spring of 2021, and into like last year was just kind of like a whirlwind of some things with church in like a good kind of way. Like all of this is like strictly good, like genuinely. But I decided towards the end of the year that I just wanted to not be on staff anymore. I wanted to be able to go in and just be a not paid member, right? And I'm assuming that anybody who's listening to this who has been on church staff before or has maybe worked for a ministry, you just get that piece of like, you just want to be able to exist there and not have an expectation because you're being paid. And there was a lot of thought and a lot of different conversations that went into that. But ultimately, it was what I had a bunch of peace about. So resigning from that towards the end of the year obviously changes things financially for me a little bit. I don't talk about money. That's gross. But I paid off a ton of debt last year. And I mentioned in Emily's episode that when we were recording, the timeline was somewhere around December, I would be buying a house. Like the process would be starting. And so part of one of the things that made my decision to leave the church job was because buying a house is the most ridiculous thing in the entire world. It's ridiculous. I work for the government. If you really want to know how much I make, go Google it. Like it's out there. It is what it is. But I live on my own. I pay my bills. I paid off an incredible amount of debt last year. I have an incredibly rigid budget that I have gamified. And side note, would just love to talk about. And maybe on another episode with somebody who's smarter than I am when it comes to money, we can break that down. But I'm not like struggling, okay? I'm not struggling. My debt to income is not ridiculous. But I just could not get the house buying process to work for me. I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but like the credit was fine. The income was fine. The houses were fine. The banks just suck, man. Like they really, really do. And I just grow weary that maybe I missed that window. I'm worried that we will never have a housing market that is tangible ever again. So, not buying a house, but I am renting a house. My rent in my apartment shot up to a number that I was like, this is ridiculous. I am paying to live in a little box when I could be in a little house. So I made some phone calls. I got connected and I'm moving into a house next weekend, actually. So if you live in Evansville and you're not doing anything on Saturday or maybe Sunday, I would love the help. This is exactly what it sounds like it is. I'm asking you to help me move, and you're welcome. You're welcome to be there with me. But it was an incredibly difficult process, and I kind of had to mourn it a little bit because I really was not expecting. I wasn't expecting to like still be renting. You know, I was expecting to be purchasing, and I had worked so hard. I mean, I didn't go on vacation. I didn't spend any crazy amounts of money on things last year. I mean, like I was incredibly disciplined. And then this thing I was disciplined for, it fell flat. But this house is genuinely an answered prayer. It's got a backyard for Suki. It's got a giant dining room. I mean, it's exactly what I want. It's just maybe not how I thought that I was supposed to get it. So praise God that he knows better for me than what I do, right? On top of all of that, I think that the seasonal depression maybe was just hitting pretty hard. So it was a lot. But aside from where I thought this year was going to be and what this year has been, those are two very different things. So let me tell you, the first 3 days out of the year, you ready for this? January 1st. I looked it up. I was officially 1/3 of the year, or 1/3 of my way through a year without any sugar. Like, no intentional sugar. Like, no breaks, no, oh, well, I'm just going to have a little something. No, like a third of the way through the year, committed, no sugar. That was a win. That was huge. January 2nd, I walk into work. First day back after our New Year's break. Found out that my apartment was going to be restructuring and that I would be changing positions. And this was something that I had been praying for a year and a half, 2 years, something that like had been like working towards and pushing towards, and it just like couldn't come to fruition. And so when I put on my bingo card that I was going to be changing jobs this year, I did not know that that would be what it would be. Now, I had like gone into my boss's office and I was just like, this is what I think we should do. Because if I am shooting my shot to get a job, I'm going to shoot my shot here internally. So second day of the year, walked in, found out I was moving into a job that I love, like love. And I know that was a win. All right. January 3rd, third day of the year, launch this podcast. That in itself was so much time and energy and love, and then was responded to so well, and people have been so encouraging. So my first 3 days out of the year were like boom, 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 immediately. And it was truly starting off the year with a bang. And I was just like, okay, like these are amazing answered prayers. Like this is incredible. And I'm still feeling that bang. I'm excited to wake up in the morning. I'm waking up before my alarm goes off. Am I getting up? Absolutely not. But I'm like waking up excited because I know that I've got things in front of me that are things that I can look forward to, and I don't feel so down about them. I get to podcast every week, whether it's sitting and editing or sitting and having conversations with people or just promoting slowly on social media or learning new disciplines that come with it. Like I am thoroughly enjoying this. I'm excited about a new house that I get to make a home. That was what I told the woman that I'm renting from, that I just want a home. I want something that's mine. I want to plant flowers. I want to have a barbecue. Like I don't want to have to just feel like I'm in a temporary place. And so I'm so excited for that. However, let's talk about the sugar. I officially broke my sugar fast last week because don't get too disappointed. Joe Brewski has a red velvet coffee every February, and it's only here during the month of February. And so I got some, and I drank it over the course of a couple of days, and then I went back this week and I got another one and I drank it over the course of a couple of days. I'm learning how to have this normal picture of sugar in my life, but that's a much larger conversation. However, this is a very simple plug. Go check out Joe Brewski's Red Velvet. So good. So good. You can tell him that I sent you. I don't know if that will do anything. Maybe I'll text him tomorrow and ask if they'll give a 10% off if someone mentions this. Oh my gosh, how fun would that be? It's going to happen. Jacob, I'm texting you. You're not going to listen to this before it happens. All right. Last bit of life update. Maybe not in my own life. I mean, I see where God is providing for me in so many ways, financially as well as just like relationally and spiritually. But I do a weekly Bible study. We meet on Monday nights, and it requires you to spend time in the Word every day. Requires a strong word, but that's the goal. Like the goal is to build a discipline where you're spending time in the Word every day. I'm not there. That's just transparently, I'm not there. And a friend really spoke some truth to me the other night at dinner about where my distractions are. And despite the fact that I feel like I'm in such a good place with some space and putting some like healthy rhythms into my life that leave room for me to have these disciplines, like I haven't quite done them well yet. But I have really, really enjoyed this Bible study. I also have friends that are not afraid to be honest with me, and I have friends that are my family. And I know that I talk about that a lot. And I know that this podcast is literally 52 of my closest friends. But I love my friends. Love my friends. And I hope that if there is ever a time when my friends are questioning how I feel about them, like, they don't have to. Like, maybe that's a silly thing to say, but I'm just really blessed with an amazing support system. And we are only the second week. We are halfway through the month of February. And I have already seen what amazing friendships I have and how people will show up for you. And that's been really great, as well as just the support that comes with that. And last Sunday, well, I guess not this Sunday that we just had, but the Sunday before that, I lost a really good friend. He had been sick for some time, and it just went downhill a lot quicker than what it was supposed to. And I have formed this friendship with this man and his wife after starting to attend my church. And you just don't really realize wholeheartedly like how much someone means to you until like you're not able to tell that person anymore. And sitting at his funeral last Thursday, I leaned over to the woman sitting next to me. We go to church together. We're friends. And I said, you know, this is why we should be telling people how we feel about them at birthday parties and over dinner and when someone pops into our head, and not waiting until their funerals. You know, we're saying things at funerals that should just be said to people that we care about. And I've heard that before. I've tried to adopt it, but it even still, like, sitting there thinking of all the things and all the ways that I could have let this man know that, like, that he meant to me, and the friendship that he extended. You know, I don't get that opportunity to now. And so maybe it's a little serious, but I think that we should be so much more proactive about making sure that people in our life feel cared about. So, just a little plug for you to maybe look inside yourself and ask, am I doing that? And if I'm not, why not? And then maybe go see a therapist. So, all right, let's transition to the last topic, to the Valentine's Day content. So speaking of telling people how you feel, I'm just kidding. I'm not about to profess my love on here to someone, because that would be uncomfortable, and I still haven't heard from him. So, oh man, if you know, you know, right? Okay. Well, here's the deal. My free space says that I'm going to re-download dating apps. I don't really know that I legitimately want to. They're not great. They're really not great. My best friend just got married in December to a guy she met on a dating app. Like, it worked for them. They're great. They're super happy. I'm not super happy because she moved 4 hours away from me, but that's besides the point. I still love her, and I think that it worked for them. They are a definition of it. You make it work, you know, despite the distance or whatever else that looks like. But they're just not great, because I don't have intentions, Lord willing, of leaving Evansville anytime soon. And being in your 30s, it is really difficult to ask someone to relocate. And because I am not willing to relocate, it maybe just adds a little extra of a barrier. They're also not great because, I don't know, have you ever seen a man's dating profile? I don't just want to like sit and rag on men and their dating profiles, but I have been doing it long enough that it just feels very robotic and disingenuous. And I have been able through the years to develop a system where I can look at this profile and know so much about this guy, so much immediately, because it's probably not the first time that I've seen one like it, and I'm not lumping them all into one boat together, but my goodness, it's not great. And if you don't believe it, just download it, make a fake profile, and swipe through for a little bit. And you know what? I'm sure if you were a man listening to this and you use online dating, I'm sure that it's not much better for you, because some of the conversations that I've had with these men that I've matched with they're talking about like, I just really appreciate like how well you're able to carry on a conversation, or, thanks so much for like, for these little things, like just little bitty things that I'm thinking, are these not things that normal everyday people do? So they're not great. I 10 out of 10 don't recommend. I think that they have created a gap in our society in the expectations of what dating and marriage and relationships look like. But not that you need a resume, but let me just give you a really full spectrum look at my very first match and my very last, like most recent, like I got rid of dating apps and haven't had them back since like September because, okay. So, the very first guy that I matched with was actually 7 years ago this week. I just know. I know that it was 7 years ago this week. I can remember so much about that. We started talking the Saturday before Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was on Wednesday. And honestly, by Monday night, I was just like, you just know. You just know. You just know pretty early on. And if you're a believer who's dating, you just kind of like throw one of those little like, God, if this is not the right person, just shut it down. And let me tell you, he will. He will. And I hate it sometimes so much. But I knew Monday night, this was not what I wanted. And the guy was super nice, but it wasn't. But then Tuesday, he like sends kind of like a coy little message, something about like, well, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And I was just like, oh yeah. And I also, like, mind you, this was 7 years ago. I was young. I was 24. I had no clue in the world what I was supposed to be doing on a dating app. I was just naive. I was just excited that somebody wanted to talk to me. But I digress. I get to work on Wednesday for Valentine's Day, and I get a phone call before I leave that afternoon. And they're like, hey, you have a delivery down here. Do you want to come pick it up? And it was at the other branch. And so I made arrangements to have it picked up. And my friend pulls up at my apartment complex and pulls out 24 red roses. I had never met this man in person. Never met this man in person. We had only been talking since Saturday night. And he bought 24 red roses and had them delivered to my place of employment on Valentine's Day. Some of you were thinking, why did you not marry this man? Some of you were thinking, thank God that you did not marry this man. My young, naive self was like, well, he has bought me 24 roses. I now at least need to go out and have an in-person date with him. So I did. It was rough. It was really, really rough. I will spare you the details, but he said that he really wanted to use the L word, but he knew that it was too soon. And I could not have been more affirming in the fact that it was absolutely too soon. So that was my very first match, online dating, 7 years ago. Fast forward to the fall of 2024, I matched with a guy on Tuesday. We talk on the phone a lot between Tuesday and Friday. And honestly, I don't get excited about first dates. They are just kind of like a romantic interview. And if we get to a second date, maybe I'll get a little more excited. But a first date, I'm usually just like, well, let's see what happens. Well, I woke up on Friday morning. I was very excited. I had a really, really good couple of days of getting to talk to this guy and was just thinking like this could be a really good first date, you know? I think around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I sent out two of my girlfriends I'm gonna need the call, like ASAP. And I just knew I needed a reason to get out of there. And I'm not a rude person. I'm not afraid to be honest, but I'm not rude. And finding that boundary on a date when you're needing to be honest and not rude is very difficult because sometimes you just have to be rude. But thankfully, he took care of that for me. And we're sitting there and he tells me that since Tuesday, he had fallen in love with me. And then when I addressed that, he tried to walk it back. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. And then I said that I needed space and left very promptly afterwards. So he brought me flowers. He brought me a dozen red roses that night. So not quite 2 dozen. I am aware if you were to go out on a date with me, I could see where you would probably fall in love with me. But I just think that maybe that would be like a nice little button. My very, very first online date and my very, very last online date were very, very similar. Very similar. I understand why they would fall in love with me. I really do. But it's a lot. It's a whole lot. So it's exhausting. It's incredibly exhausting, especially when you feel like that you have a significant connection with someone, because then you have larger conversations and you just kind of see where they go because you want to be very intentional, especially in your 30s. But then you just have the same conversation over and over again, and the vulnerability becomes exhausting. And then I feel that I just share less. I share less because I just quit caring so much, because I no longer have this hope that, wow, like what if this date works out? It's just a matter of like, can we even like make it through the first date, And I don't think that I'm just the most horrible person to talk to in the world. You all listen to me week after week, talk to other people. I don't think that it's that awful. I'm sure that there are other reasons. I think that it really comes down to like my Heavenly Father knows better for me than what I do. But I don't know y'all well enough to have that conversation. But I live in this like really strange place of, do I get back on the dating apps or do I not? I lean more towards not, for many reasons, but there is this limbo that I feel between like, I really, really love my life. I want to make sure that that's clear. Not in a way where like, I'm like sitting here like crossing my fingers lying about loving my life. I really love it. I love that right now I am sitting in my home and I'm packing, and aside from the fact that like I've been recording, like I've been listening to music, and I cooked what I wanted for dinner tonight. Like I love my life. I'm happy, genuinely. But then there's also that balance between like, I want someone to share this life that I live with, right? Not that this person is going to come in and complete this portion of my life, but like, it would be nice to share that, all the good things that I have been able to enjoy so far for this year, like having a person to share that with. Thankfully, I have at minimum 52 close friends that I get to share my life with. But sometimes like, it would just be nice to have one, right? So I do have a lot of people that I share things with, but there's a difference between having friends that you trust and that you can share things with and just having your person. Those are different. And there are people that I've had conversations with that are single, and they're just like, well, can you explain that to me? And I'm like, well, like, you maybe don't want to be with somebody, but I do. And, one time a friend said that they were kind of shocked at the fact that I wanted a husband, despite, how independent that I was. And my response was something along the lines of like, just because I don't need a husband doesn't mean that I don't want one. And if you remember in Emily's podcast, I think it was the first of the two, she said that she found herself worthy of making dinner for just herself. And that's kind of what I'm trying to reiterate with this, is that I don't feel less of a person because I'm not married. I don't feel less of a person because I'm not putting myself out there on a dating app. I just want to find one other person whose life aligns with mine and mine with his, and we do it together. That's what I'm looking for. But I'll tell you, there kind of just got to be like a point where I wouldn't even have recognized if that was standing in front of me, if that makes sense. So 2022, I had a really hard conversation with my passive therapist, and then I had a couple of other conversations, and it really opened up a couple of areas of my life where there were a couple of questions. Number one, where's my identity found? Number two, do I know myself? And number three, how do I see myself as a person and not as all of my flaws? And that last one, I would like to say that most people probably really struggle with that, but I could be wrong. There's enough narcissists out there who don't believe that they have things wrong with them. But I then began to look at how I could best answer those questions. And I'm still working on it, but knowing that it's been almost 3 years since I started having those conversations, it has really, really changed my expectations of who I am as a person. I would tell you, I usually went no more than 4 to 6 weeks without re-downloading the dating app, because that's what happens. You get on the dating apps, you make some matches, you make some connections, you maybe go on a date or two, and then you're like, oh, this is exhausting, and then you get rid of them. And then they come back 4 to 6 weeks later. But 2022, I was just like, no, this is it. We are going to take some hard looks in the mirror, and you're going to get to know yourself. You're going to find out the things that you're asking these guys on dates. Could you even honestly answer them about yourself? And so I did. I dug in, and I said, like, I'm going to find out the answers to these questions. And so where I am now, for those who are wondering, I have found a better place and where my value lies. My value does not lie in whether I am married or not. I don't go to a church where people place an importance on that. My friends do not place an importance on that. I'm also by no means judging someone who just has this like overly strong desire to be married, because like I also have a desire to be married, but maybe my desire for being married is different than yours, and that's totally fine. But my value does not come from my husband. It does not come from children that I will have. It comes from Christ. That is 100% where it comes from. And if you don't agree with that, that's perfectly fine. I'm not expecting you to have the same belief system that I do, but I can tell you that the more that I lean into the identity that I have in Christ, the more comfortable I feel with myself, and the less that I see myself as flaws, and the more I see myself as a person. I didn't arrive at this because one day I just woke up and decided to change my mind. It has been work. It has been difficult conversations. It's been looking someone in the face and telling them, I just need you to be honest with me, and working through that with them, and discipleship, and reading books, and getting perspective from people. And lastly, controversially, going on dates. Going on dates and using dating apps are very, very different things. I read a book last year. The name of the book is super, super cheesy. It's called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping by Dr. Henry Cloud. I think it's great. I think even if you're married, it's probably a really good idea to go back and read, to maybe have a better understanding of what today's dating market is like. But his encouragement is just to date. Just say yes to getting to know someone, because he was just like, whatever you're doing is obviously not working for you. So why don't you listen to somebody who has a little bit more insight? And it did. It changed a lot of that perspective for me. So I dated. And what I would say to encourage other people who are single, specifically women, I'm not here to encourage the men other than do better. I'm not kidding. I'm not going to tell you to go out and to read all these books and to just dive into ministries in your life and focus on the fact that being single is a gift. I'm going to tell you to find where your identity is, because when you find your identity, you're going to discover who you are. And when you discover who you are, your value in the way that you see yourself is going to change. That sounds like three really, really, or I don't know if it's three, but like, it sounds like an easy step, but it's not, because if you really present yourself, if you're a believer and you present yourself in front of Christ and you're like, all right, I need you to show me who I am. It's going to be a bit of a journey, because there are things that are going to have to come out of the way for you to be able to see who you are, because we keep these barriers and we keep these, this arm's length distance away from our Creator, because we're afraid of truly being known. And like, as somebody who like, that's just what I want. Like, that's just what I desire. Like, when I think of like a spouse, like, I just want to be known. I want one person to know me, not a bunch of people. I want one person to know me. But you know who I have a really hard time getting to know? And that's Christ, because Christ sees through it all anyway. And I cannot wrap my head around the fact of why he would continue to love me. And I had no plans of evangelizing when I was writing out my notes for this, but it's true. I changed the way that I dated. I changed the way that I felt about dating. I changed the way that I felt about marriage when I decided to not look at singleness as, this gift or as this like temporary placeholder for me to grow closer in my relationship with Christ, so that once I reach a what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of what the word is. It's like right there on the tip of my tongue. I'm so sorry. But like when you reach this place in your relationship with Christ where you are adequately far enough down your line of sanctification that he's like, okay, guess what? You are holy enough now. I'm going to give you a spouse. That's not how that works. That is not how he operates. I leaned into getting to know Christ and asking him to show me who my value comes from and where my identity lies. And it changed the rest of it for me. Now, I'm not healed. I'm not perfect. I'm obviously, as we mentioned, I'm going to be going to therapy this year. I think that is part of the step. That is part of acknowledging that there are people out there who know better than I do, and they can help me work through some of those things. Also, I am a human, and I grew up being raised by humans who also have sins and they have flaws, and they did the absolute best that they can, but that doesn't mean that I came out on the other side unscathed. And so whether you're single or whether you're married and you are sitting in this situation thinking like, am I loving myself enough? Am I loving my spouse enough? Am I loving my kids enough? Am I loving my community enough? Whatever it is, or whoever it is that you are questioning whether you are loving yourself enough, like I think that's great. I think that being in this place of wanting to be better and wanting to grow better is fine. But I would encourage you to stop and look at Christ and say, am I loving you enough? Am I giving you enough? Because if that answer then is no, or it's, I don't know, it's not enough, or if you really just genuinely can't answer that question, like start there. Start there, because I guarantee you that the moment that you start putting your vision and your trust in who Christ is, the other areas where you feel like that you are being inadequate are going to start to feel less inadequate. If you feel that you are not loving your husband or your wife or your kids enough, do you know who you should love? You should love Jesus. You should put time into Jesus, so then Jesus then will handle the rest of it for you. It's not like this magic fountain where you throw a quarter in and Jesus grants your wishes. That's not what it is. But if you legitimately, whether you're single or not, are trying to decide how you're supposed to live this life and find fulfillment in it, whether that's in a romantic relationship, a platonic relationship, no relationship, that's how you're going to get there. I promise. I'm not saying that you're not going to pour everything that you have into it and how do I put this? You can pour everything that you have, all of your faith and all of your love and all of your time into Jesus. He's not going to let you down. But what I can tell you is that sometimes he's going to give you things that you don't want, but that you need. And I have had to I've had to maybe come to terms with the fact that I have a desire on my heart to be married, and I have a desire to have kids. Maybe to have kids more than to be married, depending on the day. And there are so many verses that are taken out of context about the desires of your heart, and, our hearts are these wicked things. And I'm not going to get into the theology of that this evening, but what I am going to tell you is that there are going to be some times that you're going to pray and you're going to worship and you're going to give God everything that you have. And Jesus is going to come back with an answer to that prayer that you don't want, because it doesn't look like the way that you thought that it was going to. And I have had some very hard conversations with myself and thinking that maybe the desires that I have on my heart they're not bad. They're not bad. I don't think that the desires to be a wife and to be a mother are bad. I don't think the desires to love your family or to serve your community or to just be a better person are bad. But as you grow and you lean further into Christ, the better that you're going to understand that he's going to give us what we need and not always what we want. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to anyone else. So, happy Valentine's Day. I don't know where all this came from, but honestly, at the end of the day, I think that the most important relationship of your life is the one that you're going to have with Jesus. And if you're not a believer and you have continued to sit through this, I would love to talk to you more about that. Like I said, I didn't have any plans of evangelizing this evening, and I have thought all day, and I thought all day yesterday about how I wanted to bring this idea of Valentine's Day as a single person in without making it sound like cheesy or self-loathing or whatever. But I really believe that I'm going to continue to find joy in my life, and I'm going to continue to find pieces of my life that make me happy and that fill me up and that provide satisfaction that are also nice and good, right? Because I'm trying to be a better version of a friend of Jesus, you know? I don't do it right. I wholeheartedly can tell you that I don't do it right. And if you know me, you know that I don't do it right. But I'm trying, and I'm going to encourage you to try as well. So, to wrap this up, this wasn't supposed to be some like weird plug at like, hey, I'm single and ready to mingle. Because most importantly, I just want to be seen as an individual. I don't want to be seen as my relation to another human. I don't want to be known as so-and-so's sister or daughter or wife. Like, I just want to be known as Hannah Bedwell. And I hope that for those of you that are close to me, I hope that you feel that I see you as an individual. And so this is my encouragement, not to make a plug for me to be single and ready to mingle, but rather like just look at the people in your lives as individuals and encourage them to grow in areas in their life that are beneficial for them. But with that being said, I am single. I do love the Lord. So just, I'm also just throwing that out there. But I appreciate you all listening, and I really hope that you have a great Friday, a happy Valentine's Day, however you choose to celebrate. And I feel like there's a lot of things in here that I like gave you all some prompts for. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. But have a great weekend. Thanks, friends.